So what's up, everybody? More to a Mortgage podcast. This is Rob Magnato with First Team Real Estate. He's becoming a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
We seem to connect.
We do.
You know? It's just kind of easy. So there's some cool alignments there. We're both dads. We've both been in the real estate. I'm on the finance side. You're on the real estate side for quite a few years. How many years did you say?
Well, I've been in real estate for about 25 years.
Yeah. It's been 20 for me.
Yeah, but really like pedal to the metal, kind of 20 years.
Yeah.
The first 5 were
2 decades. You learn a lot.
you could say that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of miles in those years.
But we're not going to just talk real estate today. And there was some conversations we were having earlier that I wanted to capture.
Yes.
You were asking me earlier, and we'll get into real estate. We'll get into, your thoughts on the market. Sure. But obviously Wolverine's here with us today. Your book's here today. The last time we did a podcast together was not in person. And
no.
I forgot to plug your book, so sorry about that.
That's okay. It's an old book anyway.
But the fact that you have a book is really cool.
We'll plug the next one. How's that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
So, where do you want to start? You were asking me something earlier that I wanted to capture on here because we were talking about what do we want the identity of this podcast to be? Was that your question?
That was the beginning of it was like, where do you want this to go? What do you see this being in the future? How do you see this evolving? And that's how we started.
Well, I think that ideally it's letting people in on who you are as a human being more than just the canned X's and O's mortgage or real estate stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's a podcast you're a fan of. What's it called?
Well, I'm not going to say I'm a fan of it, but
okay.
I watch it because
that's right. That's what we were talking about. So this is what I wanted to capture is the conversation. Go ahead and finish your thought.
No, that's okay. It's called the Whatever Podcast, and I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it. I watch it more, not because I particularly agree with things that are said on either side, but it is, for us, it's going to be the next generation of clients we have.
Yeah.
Whether it's buyers or future sellers, these are people we're going to work with. And I think it's important to know how they view the world, how they think. Generations change.
And these are even younger generation than the millennial generation, right?
These are, I think these are mostly Gen Z
Gen Z.
That's, I think, what's on there. I'm Gen X. I think you're probably Gen X.
I'm kind of millennial. I'm like the first year of the millennial.
Okay.
Yeah. Born in 1983, even though I look like I was born in 1973.
Oh, well. I'll stay out of that one. I'm not getting involved in that. But so I'm Gen X. So my views are obviously formed more through growing up in the 80s.
Yeah.
The greatest generation of all time was the 80s. Or the greatest period of time, in my opinion. Best music, best movies, best everything.
I can
watch the Juicy Fruit commercials back then, and they're water skiing, and I'm like, yeah, that's what it's like growing up in the 80s. Like that's, and I wasn't.
80s was the best.
My family was rich. They were probably what you would call lower middle class.
Yeah. You had Bruce Springsteen, you had Tom Petty. I mean, come on, man. You had Michael Jackson. Hello.
I'm a hair band guy, so for me it was Bon Jovi and Def Leppard and Cinderella and
Metallica.
That was nothing against them. That was I had a lot of friends that liked them a lot. That kind of came later for me. The Black Album obviously is very good.
Right.
More of like at the time we called it kind of arena rock, but it was Bon Jovi, the stuff like that. That was
Final Countdown.
Europe. It was Europe, sure. I mean, I had a band. That's kind of what got me into all that. I actually formed a band in high school. I think I was 16.
That's right. I was asking you if you're a musician.
Yeah. And the band did well. We played, because I grew up in L.A., we were able to play in what was at the time a very busy Hollywood strip. So we played at Gazzarri's.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. We played at Gazzarri's. We played at the Roxy. We played at the Whiskey.
Wow, that's so cool.
Sure. It was awesome. We opened for Warrant, who ended up becoming a very successal band at a place called FM Station, which I don't think is there. I'm sure it's been gone for a long time.
And what time period was this for you?
This would be right around 90.
Okay.
Right around 1990.
Yeah.
I was young. I was very young, and my drummer was my buddy. One of our guitarists was my buddy, and then we had some older guys in the band. But that was the kind of music we were playing. It was right in that sort of Warrant, Poison kind of wheelhouse.
Yeah, man.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. FM Station was a place up in the valley, and
if you got a couple good breaks, you probably wouldn't be talking to me today.
For sure. You know-
you know what I mean? Because sometimes it is luck.
Well, people ask me all the time how I feel about grunge when I'm talking about music, and I'm like, I hate it. And they're like, why? Why do you hate grunge? I'm like, well, it destroyed my career.
Really?
Yeah, oh, yeah. We just timed it badly. I needed to be like 4 years older. And I probably could have got in. I mean,
So grunge took over as a genre at that stage.
grunge killed that form of music.
Okay.
Just annihilated it. I mean, the 90s really separated into grunge and boy bands. That's where it went. And grunge didn't last very long as a genre. Obviously, the boy band stuff lasted longer. But grunge kind of killed...
Would you categorize your band as, at the time, it was what? Metal?
Hair band.
Hair
No,
band.
we were a hair
Okay,
band.
yeah.
We sounded, I mean, sonically... I'd probably put us into like a Warrant. And anybody that's watching this that knows the 80s, Danger, Bon Jovi-ish. Not quite so much as melodic as them, but that was kind of our wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had people that come to our shows and said like we sounded like an updated Journey. Mm-hmm. So
Updated Journey.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, we had a really good singer for a while.
And you still have the records, I assume. Like I
have the cassettes.
You'll have to share this with me.
I have the cassettes.
Okay, right on.
Yes,
You
yeah.
got to get those digitally transferred if you haven't.
I have some stuff that I moved onto CD later, but it was after I'd left the band, and I wanted very much to stay with music, so I ended up becoming a music major, and I got very involved in a thing called ghostwriting, which
Sure.
I would tell you more about, but I can't tell you too much about because it's a faux pas in the industry. You're not supposed to say who you worked with or what you worked on, but I worked on some pretty.
Really?
I worked on some
Why,
pretty
the
good
artists
things.
want to take credit for it as if they wrote it themselves? Is that the idea?
Well, they do get credit for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get named credit, but I worked with some great stuff. I mean, one I'm allowed to say because I think I showed up on credits at a certain point in time. But I worked on the TV show Walker, Texas Ranger for a while.
Okay. Oh, sure. Wait. Why do I know that? Who was the actor? in
Chuck
that?
Norris, baby.
Of course.
Chuck
yeah.
Norris. How can you not? Come on. It's
Yeah.
Chuck Norris.
That's what came to mind immediately.
Yeah, Chuck Norris was the greatest. But so I worked on that, and then I worked on some films and did a lot of. It was a very fun job, very different from real estate, but very stressful because it's sort of like you could be doing nothing, and then you've got 3 weeks to prepare or to help the composer prepare a full score, maybe 90 to 120 minutes worth of music. The composer usually comes up with the main themes, so
Right.
I absolutely give them credit for that. Most of the time that's theirs. They kind of have their skill guys that they know. Some of the guys I worked with were like, they do action scenes. That's what they do.
Interesting.
So he's going to get that.
Yeah.
And then you're the guy that does creepy really well. So, hey, there's some hallway stuff here. Someone's going up the stairs slowly. You do this. And then you've got guys that do techno. And so we need something a little more electronic. So they all kind of work together. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But you're 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
You go to sleep, you wake up, you jump on it again for 3 weeks. Generally only to have a director come in and go, what's that sound? You're like, what do you mean, what's that sound? Well, that sound, what was that? It was a trumpet. Like, I don't like that. Get rid of that.
No more cowbell.
Yeah, kind of. So and that's, you're frustrated obviously at that moment because you're like, but if I get rid of the trumpet here, I mean, you're thinking about it, they're thinking about it from the terms of how they want to see their film.
Yeah.
You're thinking about it from the terms of, but if I remove the trumpet here, I have to actually take it back all the way to here because it's part of a line that concludes. So you're thinking about it in these very complex things in your head, and they're thinking, I just don't like how it sounds in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the solution is just,
So this is like
pull the fader down.
super granular detail, attention to detail type stuff, which
unbelievable.
probably makes you a good, just to tie it back to real estate a little bit.
Sure, why not? Let's talk about real
Probably
estate for a minute.
You got a book about it after all.
That's right, I do. Please buy my book. It's on Amazon.
It's like what I think a lot of people don't appreciate about guys like you and me, I think, is...
We're very underappreciated. in
Yeah,
our-
yeah. Well, it's the technical aspect of our industry. Like, there's good salespeople, and then there's good technicians. And sometimes
there's
in
both.
rare cases, you have both, right? Which I think we both have a little bit of that. And I'm not a phenom or anything like that, but the human connection part, the sales part, but also having an IQ to the point where you actually know how to handle a challenging transaction.
I think you're a phenom for your age. Too.
Yeah.
Give yourself more credit.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Well, for me, I started young, so it wasn't because I'm aware, right? Like I have a good friend of mine who's got a way higher IQ than me, right? but he started at like 30, right? And I started at 19 doing this. So it's not because I'm better. It's just that my life experience started sooner, right? It's just volume of transactions.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about not to cut you off, but you're talking about the experience component, I think, really of any job.
Yeah.
But I think, unfortunately, what happens with real estate, and I put lending into just the whole real estate category, I think what happens with it is that it gets a bad reputation with people because of the ones that don't do very well.
Yeah.
Or the ones that aren't very good at their job.
Yeah.
Or that fail all the time. And unfortunately, I would say there's more of those than the ones that are extremely good
And you know why that is, right?
Well, low barrier to entry.
Thank you. You finished my sentence for me.
It's too easy. It should never be this easy to get into these jobs. I'm dealing with the most expensive thing a person is generally buying or selling ever. You're handling the financial aspect of that entire thing. And the barrier to entry is take a couple of tests.
Right.
It's bizarre.
It is.
We can get into a longer conversation later about, does the powers that be really care about the buyer, the borrower, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
I would argue this most recent lawsuit, I would say, illustrates to me that they don't really care.
Yeah.
Because not only didn't it accomplish anything positive, I would say
it was more just
negative.
to stick it to the real estate industry at the end of the day.
I suppose. I mean, I've only read what came out of it from the aspect of how it was decided. I already have it in practice now in the job. It's going exactly the way I thought it would in the job, which is to say, not good.
Really?
I haven't talked to a single realtor. I mean, for some perspective here. Okay, so in my career, and this is not to be conceited. This is just perspective.
Yeah.
So I've been a top producer for many, many years. Sold a lot of homes.
Yeah.
Done a lot of deals and some incredibly tough deals. I've done some that I'm usually like the third one coming in to clean it up.
Yes.
So
going back to the technician part,
So in doing that, you don't really make friends with realtors. It's not that kind of business. We're all super competitive with each other. If you wanted me to sell your house, there's going to be 5 other realtors that are bummed. It's just how it is.
Yep.
So, and yours is, again, kind of the same way.
Tribalism, yeah.
100%. So, but we're friendly enough where we'll communicate. You're calling somebody to say, hey, I'd like to show the property on Saturday. I know these are our new guidelines. How do you feel about it? And you'd be surprised how chatty I'm Italian, so I talk with my hands.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how chatty some people can get with this.
Okay.
And I mean, I was on the phone with a lady recently. I think she went 10 minutes without stopping about how horrible this is.
And this is the listing agent you were talking to?
This was the listing agent because I had a buyer. I wanted to show the house. There's a different set of questions, we'll leave it at that you have to ask now. And so in just asking that question, it was a 10-minute response at least about how bad this is and how this hurts the consumer. And nothing that she said, by the way, could I reasonably disagree with.
Yeah.
I couldn't, because if you, and we are kind of jumping into something here, but if you really did care about the consumer, if you did, the first thing you would do is ban dual agency.
Yeah.
And you would do it tomorrow.
I couldn't agree with you more. And look,
and this is coming from somebody that
you're
has
an agent.
done dual agency several times.
Yeah.
I would ban it.
I hear you.
If you're being fair.
Well, if you just understand basic human nature, and I will preface this with, I do understand there's really good human beings in this industry that do dual agency transactions, that do their best and have the best of intentions and probably do a good job, right? Yeah. However,
not easy though.
Right. We talked about barrier to entry earlier and basic human nature defaults, right? And you got 10 offers in a hot market, and one of them is a juicy dual agency situation that probably in many circumstances may or may not be in the best interest of the seller, right?
It's usually not.
Right. So,
and I'll explain why in a moment.
Yeah. But how is the NAR, like, just backing up for people that may not know what we're talking about, clearly at a high level, August 17th, right?
13th was when it went into effect.
Was that the 13th? Yeah. The NAR settlement, the new guidelines and laws or whatever went into effect, okay? And that has to do with buyer compensation, what can show up on the MLS as far as language, and it's all kind of over my head. I understand the gist of it, but I'm a loan officer just looking out. I'm outside of the emotional bubble, watching from the outside looking in. You're the guys who are in it.
Right.
But yeah, to your point, dual agency, the idea that dual agency still exists after a NAR settlement is just absurd. It doesn't make any sense to me.
because they
Sorry
address-
to say that. Some of the realtors I work with might
No,
not hear
listen.
that.
There's, and I'm going to make probably a pile of realtors, some big ones in this area, very mad, by saying you should ban dual agency because that's how some of the, I'm going to say, less than. I'm just going to say it. Some of the more shady ones. That's how they stay in business. Okay, I mean, if we're being honest, and we want to be honest, right? That's how they stay in business. Some of them create dual agency very well. They're skilled in it, and some of them are local to us. So it is what it is. But the reason I say that, who was in the Super Bowl last year? The Chiefs, I'm sure, because they're always
the
in
Chiefs
it.
beat the. Who did they beat? I don't remember.
I know. Who cares?
I'm a passive NFL fan. I put it on to have in the background while we're barbecuing or something.
Every play getting reviewed, it was the end for me. I'm just like, can I just watch the game?
There was a bunch of controversy last night with the Chiefs-Ravens opening night, by the way.
I'm sure there was.
No one liked the outcome based
on... Was it the Rams? Did they play the Rams last year? No, the 49ers?
It was the 49ers.
Okay, so perfect example. So
Brock Purdy.
Chiefs coach is Andy Reid, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Imagine you're Andy Reid and you're in the Super Bowl, but you're coaching both teams.
That's so funny.
That's dual agency.
Okay, I totally get it now.
Who wins?
I got it before, but that literally puts it into a great spotlight.
Well, how do you determine who wins? Someone has to win. They can't both win. The Super Bowl can't end in a tie.
Fiduciary responsibility towards both at the same time.
I've heard, I've described it before to other people too, as like you're a lawyer and you're defending the plaintiff and the defendant.
Yeah.
And that's really almost more succinctly what it is.
I don't know, man. I don't know. The real estate world is a weird world.
Yeah, here's one. Here, let's do a little game here. You're selling your house, okay? I'm selling your house, and we've got it listed for 1.1, but I know you'll take $1 million. That's your bottom number. I know it because you told me.
Yeah.
Because sellers tell you.
Yeah.
They tell you.
Yeah.
Now I got a buyer. They want to buy your house. They really don't want to spend more than $9 million, but I know they're qualified up to $1 million. Mm-hmm. What's your house going to sell for, Jay?
Yeah, for $1 million.
No, nobody wins there.
Right.
And it's not because you don't care. You 100% care.
Yeah.
It's actually incredibly stressful if you take it seriously. But I have knowledge that doesn't really benefit either party.
Yeah.
I know what the maximum the buyer will spend. I know what the smallest amount you'll take is.
Right.
And guess what? Those numbers meet.
Yeah. Do you think that would be a different outcome if there wasn't a dual agency then?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. You should of course have your own representation. And the idea that, getting on my little pedestal here, the idea that, well, I don't need a realtor. You do. You just need a good one.
Yeah.
And you need to figure out how to find a good one.
Yeah.
And there's ways to just even starting people say, well, I don't know what to ask.
Yeah.
How about this? Let's start here. How many homes have you sold?
I'm feeling the passion emanating off of you
Well,
right now.
we talked about how many years we've been in the business, right?
Yeah, 20 years, yeah.
Okay, you learn a lot in that time frame.
Yeah.
And in that time frame, you hear things often, and one of the ones you hear a lot is, I don't know what to ask.
Yeah.
Ask them how many homes they've sold.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very basic concept, right? Because sometimes somebody's been in the industry for 20 years and it's irrelevant because they do one transaction every 5 years, right?
That's most realtors.
So the length of time isn't necessarily the deciding factor. It's length of time and transaction volume.
You'll notice I left the length of time out.
Yeah.
And I did that for that exact reason. Yeah. There are a very common thing to happen with real estate is the empty nester syndrome. So the kids go off to college and either the husband or the wife wants to get into real estate, so they get their license and they sell their friend's house. And so they're only doing maybe one home a year.
Yeah, sure.
If they get lucky, maybe two.
Yeah.
But over the course of, certain amount of time, I've been in the business for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
It's usually the people, too, when I'm a loan officer on a transaction and something pretty rudimentary is happening in a transaction that would be considered a challenge. And I'm communicating what that challenge is. Mm-hmm. And I get the response, I've been in real estate for 30 years. I've never seen... And I'm like, okay. And then you look up their production, and you're right. It was the empty nester who got their license who does the one transaction every 2 years. And you're like, well, time is irrelevant. It's the amount of life experience and transaction volume that matters, right?
The first thing I do.
When they start posturing like that, and beating their chest and saying how many years they've been in the industry, and by the way, it's not even an issue or making a mountain out of a molehill. It's like, oh, this is here. Let's deal with it. Let's not have a meltdown, right? It's like, Yeah.
First thing I do when a client calls me and says, hey, especially if it's out of the area for me, which is pretty darn far, but let's say it is. Can you look up this agent for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. First thing I do is I go into the MLS and I pull up their sales
report.
history.
Yeah.
Everybody who's selling a house,
Yeah.
and I would argue even buying a house, everybody should do this. You should know the production level of your agent.
Totally.
And the reason you should know, I mean, to me, that number should be, you should be working with someone that number's 100 or more.
Yeah.
And I realized I probably just made everybody mad that's like, whoa, I just got my license a few years ago.
How far back do you look when you're looking at that? I know we said
I'm looking at totals. I'm just looking at totals, and I'll tell you why.
So the MLS will list the whole history.
Give or take back to 2000. Sometimes you'll see it go back to 04.
Okay, yeah.
Plenty of years.
Yeah.
At this point, plenty of years.
Yeah.
When I started, that was not really even a possibility.
Yeah.
But it is today. And the reason it's important is this. There's thousands of agents, okay? Thousands that have more than 100 transactions. Why would you work with the one that has 20?
Right.
I mean, you should ask yourself that question.
Totally.
Like, well, because it's my friend. Okay. Do you risk ruining the friendship? Number one.
That's a big thing, yeah.
Happens all the time, by the way. The amount of calls that I get from someone that says, yep, they're no longer my friend, and we might even be in a lawsuit with each other. Like, all the time.
Yeah.
Constant phone call. So that's probably
Which
number
is
one.
tragic in and of itself.
Super sad. Why would you
Because
risk it?
you outside of business, you guys are friends and you like each other and you hang out, right? So you're ruining that. So I totally that in and of itself, outside of the fact that you're talking about a 1.5-ish more or less $1 million sale in our neck of the woods. Do you really want to be somebody's guinea pig? Because that's what you're doing. You're allowing yourself to be somebody's guinea pig. And it's not, like I said, it's not even that I'm a better person. I'm not saying that. It's
not at all.
That I have had just more transactions under my belt. So unfortunately, because I'm human, I've learned through the hard knocks already. You're no longer the guinea pig that the other people were.
I mean, it has nothing to do, to me, in my view, like the quality of the person is beyond irrelevant.
Right.
It would be the same.
Yeah. It's business.
I'd have the same exact response if I was having major heart surgery.
That's
and they
where
said,
the saying comes. Yeah.
You've talked to a heart surgeon, seemed like a really great person, just phenomenal. Really, man, we got along great. How many have you done? Well, I've done 15, and they've been successful. Okay. You talk to the next heart surgeon, not a great personality, bad bedside manner. I've successfully completed 220.
You're like, sweet.
You're the winner. Yes. You're the winner. I mean, if you're going to say, well, but I really like this person, are you going to be friends?
You're right, man. You're right.
After the heart surgery's over?
Yeah.
No, you're barely going to talk to the person again, unless it went badly.
Right.
You might come in for a checkup.
Who cares?
It doesn't matter.
The saying, it's not personal, it's business, that's where that cliche came from.
And it's a good cliche,
yes.
The Godfather, baby.
Yeah.
But it should be, everybody should think about that. I think we have 40,000 realtors in Orange County, I believe the number is. I mean, it's some, I don't know what the
it's a
blender
shrinking number, right now.
Yeah,
for
it's getting
good reason.
smaller.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the market's tough. But on top of when it rains, it pours. The market's tough for the last couple of years, really.
Horrible.
And on top of that, now we have this new NAR settlement rules being instated, right? So it's, that's the nice part about what we've experienced the last couple of years. It's as painful as it's been. I always appreciate the silver lining, which for me, it brought me back to the basics of what makes a good loan officer. It brought me back to the basics of what are we being wasteful with our marketing and our profit and loss. We're looking at it every single month, making cuts, but being really strategic. That piece, because we're true professionals, because we're not going to leave the industry just because it's hard.
No.
I really appreciate the fact that, I also have more time on my hands to work out. I'm dialing in my P&L more. We actually tripled our market share between new relationships and recruiting LOs. None of this would have happened if the market didn't get pruned, right? Why do we prune a tree? It's going to come back even stronger than before. So I appreciate this because ultimately it's just going to mean more for us in the end.
Yeah, I think that's true. I just think to close that last little loop, I think the thing that people should be thinking about is if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, how do I find a realtor that's done more than 100 transactions?
Yeah.
There's thousands.
Yeah.
There are thousands in this county alone. And I'm not talking LA County, which is much bigger, or San Diego County.
Yeah.
Just where we are, thousands that have done that number of transactions, that have no complaints, that have no issue with the Department of Real Estate. Thousands.
Yeah.
You just have to start asking the right question. Do you own your own home? Do you know how many realtors don't own their own home?
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that to me before.
It's a crazy one that I would have to even say it.
Yeah.
But the fact is, people don't ask that question.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you suggest it to them, they're like, well, why does that matter? It's like, okay, well, I don't know. I guess pick whoever you want.
Yeah.
And then, when it doesn't go well, give me a call later.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm going to be home listening to my Scandinavian hair metal.
Like you said, are our specialty, though.
Oh, 100%.
And that's where we get to prove our worth is like, okay, let me clean up the mess.
I actually work with several attorneys, and that's one of the things that also, when the market gets tough, keeps you through.
Yeah.
Because attorneys are always busy.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the economy's doing.
Especially in our state, they're very, very
People
busy.
still get divorced, estates, people pass away, all that other stuff.
And attorneys are very cautious about who they make referrals to. They have to be.
Are we talking about like estate attorneys?
Oh,
like
sure. I
probate
work
and all
with probate attorneys.
Yeah.
I work with divorce attorneys.
Yeah.
They're very, very cautious because they want to make sure, if I give this to a realtor and they screw it up, it's not just bad for the thing I'm working on. It just reflects badly overall. Yeah. The court may see it. I may have to go into court and say, sorry, Your Honor, we had to replace the realtor. Like, that's not a good look. So, these are important. Everybody should just be thinking about this. Again, to put a little bow on that, but there are questions to ask.
Yeah.
Do you own your own home? Have you sold your own home? How many homes have you owned? How many homes have you sold? These are, if you want to know more, find my book.
Yeah.
And, call me.
Talk to me about the book a little bit just so we know what it's all about.
The book was kind of a fascinating thing. There's I believe, a total of 14 realtors that were found by the publishing company over time for a variety of reasons.
Cool.
And they were trying to have it be very, very distinctly different areas. So Orange County was the one they kept asking me about. I think they interviewed other people, too. I don't know what the criteria was on their end to ultimately say, this is the guy. Maybe I was very interesting that day.
That's so cool.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But then, so we each have our own chapter. And so my chapter, it was a little bit about what we're talking about right now. Part of it is, how do you pick an agent? Because I feel that that's a very important thing that is often overlooked and more often than not done poorly. Or not even done at all.
Yeah.
It's just, they live across the street.
When did it get published?
Oh, it's been published for a while. It's been out for a while. I haven't really ever pushed it because I was kind of like, writing is something I'm very into and very passionate about, but not this particular kind of writing.
Yeah.
I'm much more into, I've been working on a very large fantasy novel for a long time.
Interesting. Okay, right on. How close are we to the end of that?
Boy, to the first book, it's going to be 3 books for sure. The first book is just about done.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Right on.
It's massive. It takes place over less than 70 years, but it's several generations.
You're a musician. You've got you're writing books, both fiction and nonfiction. You have an encyclopedic knowledge of the X-Men characters, of course.
I do.
We were talking about.
I saw Colossus over here.
I have. I'm an X-Men kid. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and he saw in my office a couple figurines. One of them was Wolverine, of course. This was Rob's idea to bring Wolverine to say hi to us during the podcast.
What's going on?
And
guys?
Colossus, which I thought was funny because those are my 2 X-Men characters, and both of them at different times were in the Deadpool movies.
Yeah.
I think you said one of your buddies edited this film.
Yeah, he was the editor for it.
Really?
And what's kind of funny, too, is Gambit is one of my favorite characters.
Oh, my God. By the way, I did not like the way they interpreted Gambit. Like, what's that actor's
Which time?
name?
The recent time?
Yeah, he's so ridiculous.
The actor.
I know it was more like satire almost.
Channing Tatum?
Channing Tatum, yeah. Okay. It's like, he wouldn't have been my pick for a tall, skinny French guy.
Well, I kind of thought that it was. I think they were going for a very over the top.
Yeah, he was completely embellished. Yes.
Yeah, is he comic book accurate? No, I don't. But I don't think that's what they were. Via the story, if for those people who've seen it, no spoilers. I think they were going for something that is because of where he's located in the story.
Right.
I think they were going for some. You've seen it, right?
Yes, it's absurd.
Yeah,
it's fun and a completely absurd film.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was hilarious. But,
I did too.
Now, would I say that it's like reading, generally speaking, the 80s comics that we're talking about?
Yeah.
No, because they had a serious tone.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
And there was always metaphors with kind of buried deep within the X-Men. And
Yes, but I did really appreciate that they always put the X-Men characters in their true to form outfits, by the way.
that part was awesome.
Yes, Wolverine especially.
Yeah, I love it.
Gambit, right? Since
Yes,
we're talking
that's
about
comic
it.
accurate.
Like, honestly,
That was comic accurate.
really cool.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
I liked that. I liked that they brought Blade back. I thought that Wesley Snipes, the old Blade movie, I loved him. I thought he was phenomenal.
Good old Wesley Snipes.
I remember seeing that movie in a theater with a buddy of mine, whatever that, how, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
More? Whatever it was, and just being like, man, that was good.
Dude,
That
we
was
left
good.
the theater after seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, and I told Lorraine, my wife, and I'm like, we got to see the, what's it called? The Wesley Snipes movie, Blade, right?
Okay.
We have to see Blade.
The old one.
Yeah, the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the OG, the originals.
Oh, you've never seen the first
No,
one?
I have, but
Oh,
just
okay.
it made me want to go back and watch it.
Oh,
is what I'm
so
saying.
good.
Yeah.
So good. I'm a fan of the second Blade too.
Yeah.
The third one, no. The third one got just weird and strange, but
We need to close the loop on something, though, because we were
Yeah.
talking at the beginning. We had good conversation going before we started the camera.
it was okay. Yeah.
I thought it was. This is fascinating, right? Because we're trying to figure out generationally how to
Yes.
deal
we
with
did get sidetracked.
Gen Z and whoever comes after that. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not good with the names, right?
So the whatever podcast is what we were talking
Yeah,
about.
the whatever pot. Because it's funny. Like I'll go to different real estate offices. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is my life. Like there's what is East Side Costa Mesa? Is that the bougie part of Costa Mesa?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a certain office there that's really bougie and hip, and a lot of hipsters. And
I know what you're talking about already. I'm going to stay out of that one, but I know exactly what you're talking
And then I'll go to Long Beach, and then I'll go to South Orange County, and it's like the flavors of the different demographics are all over the map, right? And I'm more talking generationally speaking.
This
right?
is like what used to be called 31 flavors
Yeah.
when I was a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah.
And you're like, man, there's a green one over here, there's chocolate chip over
Dude,
here.
it's so different. And you're
Yeah.
right. I'm like, how am I being received? Because I'm so confused on how to show up for these different generations. My comfort zone, like I was just at a Berkshire Hathaway with one of our loan officers in Huntington Beach, and it was my comfort zone. Okay. Because it's just like demographically, they're a little bit older. It's easier to connect with. They're no frills. They just want to learn about, whatever.
You probably feel a bit more Gen X, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I know, right? Well, look at the beard.
I know.
So it's like I almost feel like it's just way more in alignment for me when I'm speaking to the younger generation. I feel like there's a disconnect. I'm wearing this polo, and I try to be hip. Kind of like maybe with the socks and the Hugo Boss tighter pants. I don't think it's landing for them though. Like my kid will go on TikTok. He I didn't know this. He started his own TikTok account and he's posting some stuff about his e-bike.
You're supposed to have parental controls, just
Whatever.
so you know. Go ahead.
I'm trying. 13. Okay, I go on there and within 2 days of opening the account, he's got 1,000 followers. Tens of thousands of likes and comments all over what he's posting, and I'm like, "How did you do that?"
Yeah,
right?
okay,
He's
right.
13, and they're speaking a different language in the comments. I'm looking at. I'm like, "What are they even saying? What does that word mean?"
Like what? Give me a word.
Ye. What is ye? Right? And then Sigma, and you know what I'm talking about?
Well, Sigma's a Greek alphabet
No,
letter.
see, you're aging yourself. That's what I
know.
mean. Like we're like completely at a disconnect. Where like I'm at that stage where my kids are completely embarrassed of me, and I'm just being dad.
Right.
And then I'll be like, wait, am I completely embarrassing? So in a weird way,
I don't think you're embarrassing, Jim.
we're kind of the same generation to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But that's where it's like we're starting to face that more and more the more time goes by. Millennials are coming of age. They're 33, 35, 37, right? And they're in their home buying stage.
Sure, yeah.
Them I can kind of connect with, right?
Yeah.
Millennials, not so
musically,
much.
though. That I cannot.
No, musically, forget about it. But yeah, Gen Z coming after millennials, I think all bets are off. I think we better have made enough money to the point where we're okay because they're not going to want to deal with us. I don't know how to do
I don't
the
know.
connected thing.
I respectfully disagree on that because
I hope I'm wrong, by the way.
I think it'll depend on the individual, and I believe this not as a construct of any other thing that we're talking about here, but just as a construct of real estate and buying real estate. I think if they've got a good relationship with their parents, that they'll say, "Hey, listen, I'm thinking about buying a house,"
Yeah.
or I'm ready to sell my house and trade up to the next one,"
Yeah.
and that, "Hey, mom or dad, who do you think I should talk to about this, or what do you think I should do about this?" And I do think our experience with
They'll bridge the gap
mom
for
and
us.
dad will
Mom
say,
and dad, yeah.
give this person a call.
Yeah.
Now, Might we be able to discuss the latest trends with them? Probably not. But I don't do that with, again, if I'm seeing a doctor, like I don't do that anyway.
Yeah.
If I'm seeing a lawyer, I don't do that anyway. Like I don't need to. That's not relevant for me.
Yeah.
So
I get in my head on it, because I know that
I
going
think
back
you worry
to...
about it too much.
I worry.
Don't try to be
I want to
cool.
be loved, man.
Yeah. Listen, and I fully embrace this. I'm a weirdo. The music. If you pull up like the last 20 songs I'm listening to, they're all Scandinavian hair bands.
Okay.
If I said their names, you'd probably never have heard of any of them.
Yeah, music is hysterical to me because it really gives you a different light on the person you thought you knew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I've gotten in cars with older realtors listening to some random shit, and you're like, oh, okay.
Well, this stuff's good, though, to be fair. This stuff's good.
Yeah.
Like, for those of you watching this, go find a band called Kissing Dynamite.
Kissing Dynamite.
Kissing Dynamite. I'm going to plug a couple
send me
bands
a link or two.
100%.
Okay.
Oh, 100%.
Because I'm a foodie, but I'm also in love with all genres of music. Especially stuff I can work out to, by the way.
Kissing Dynamite, Coming Home. Great song. Unbelievable song. Hardcore Superstar, a song called You Can't Kill My Rock and Roll. I'll send you links for these, man. This is good stuff.
You know who's going to be laughing at us while they're watching this?
No one that likes good music.
No. Lorraine's going to be laughing at us. My wife. Rob uses Lorraine for escrow, so it's kind of funny. She's going to be rolling her eyes at us completely.
Well, that's all right. I can live with that, I think. Hey, listen, I hear some of the stuff that's on the radio today.
For the record,
no.
This is where I think I am getting older, because the example of my son who can in 2 hours get more followers than me than I can get in a year.
Crazy. That's crazy.
But also,
good for him, man.
Yeah, right. But also music. I have the last time I've turned on the radio, I can't remember. Now Spotify is a different story. Right?
Well, when I say radio, that's my age showing.
But I don't go to like play today's pop music playlist. I don't do that, right? I'm going to the stuff that I like.
Oh no, I still do. I like to keep I like Benson Boone. It's great. I like to keep my toe.
I don't even know who that is, man.
Your kids will. Ask your kid for TikTok. No, I like to keep my toe and all that. Number one, because I love music. I probably love music and film. Far more than real estate.
Yeah, you grew up in L.A., man.
Oh yeah, well I mean that's true. No, that's true. That has a lot of bearing on it.
Seriously,
it was actually weird when I came down to Orange County. When I moved to Orange County, and I think I was around 20 when I came to Orange County.
Super different here.
Very different.
Yeah.
And I remember actually a couple of friends that I made very quickly were like, "I'm sorry, you like what?" I like Bon Jovi, for example. And they're like, no. We listen to No Doubt and Alice in Chains.
Oh, God.
Now, Alice in Chains is just fine, by the way. I love Alice in Chains.
Yeah, but No Doubt's a little different.
But I just thought it was interesting to be like, we're not talking about a very far distance. We're talking about 45 miles.
It makes a huge difference. That's why they say real estate's local, One street to another.
Real estate is local. There are similarities, but it is local, and it's good just to talk to someone who knows their stuff. But the last thought just to close out the loop on the Whatever podcast, I do think because the ideas of how I think the way anybody, not you, me, anybody, how they view the world is kind of an insight into what you want your home to be like. Because if you're like, I hate being inside, okay, that's somebody that wants a great backyard that they can spend a lot of time in. And it doesn't so much matter if the house is a little bit smaller. That location's going to be more important for them. But if somebody goes, I work at home, I have a home office, my kids, I want a study room for them, they don't even bring up a yard. Okay, you're going to need a bigger house, probably some more rooms. Yard is less of a concern. So whatever it is, it's learning about them that still helps. Not so much you, that helps more me.
Yeah, so just if I'm hearing you right, with the Whatever podcast, the reason you're paying attention is it's educational for you. It's helping you understand the newer generation, how to...
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It helps you understand where their head's at to know, hey, as you start to... And I do have some...
Which, by the way, is great awareness. Like, it's always a good sign of it, either intelligence or self-awareness when someone's like, there's certain people in our lives who are just programs, right? They're going to be who they're going to be, and it's their way or the highway, and they're not interested in learning about other generations or other societies, whatever, right? So it's kind of cool that you're indicating, you're watching that because you actually want to learn.
Yeah, and I think it's... You are very much the same way as me, I believe, on this thing, which is you're never done accumulating knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm
You're a seeker.
well, I'm
I am.
obviously I'm much
Yeah.
older now, and I do believe that with age comes wisdom. I didn't believe that when I was 18.
The wisdom is knowing that you don't know shit.
I know far less, and I'm so hyper aware
Yes.
of what I don't know.
Right.
I mean, at 18, I was like, I know everything.
Yeah.
But my world was this big.
Yeah.
You know, now my world is enormous.
Yeah.
And the bigger your world gets, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah, the ego goes down to size. The
Sure.
ego is always there, but like my ego, you know, I went through different stages where it got out of control. But the more the ego did get out of control, I noticed the more I got completely humiliated or annihilated. So like I'm at that stage in my 40s where the ego is there, and if I'm not careful, it'll get out of control. But I've learned enough not to burn my hand on the stove, you know?
Yeah, I just think it's always important to know what you don't know. And rather than think that, okay, I'm excellent at real estate and I'm excellent at food, making food, you know, whatever. Rather than kind of focusing on that, I think it's good to be like, you know, I don't know a ton about whatever it is, and I'm going to research about it because I care about it. Or I'm not going to research about it because I don't care about it. But be aware of what you don't know. I think that's important.
Things that make you curious.
Absolutely. And I'm curious about a lot of stuff. So I tend to, I'll dip my hand into, I read a lot. You know, we don't really read much anymore as a society. It's kind of,
Audiobooks.
yeah, well, I'll count that as reading. But my larger point being, we've kind of gotten away from, I think, and I read fantasy books. I mean, if we were to have
The nonfiction stuff I have a hard time getting into. I'm always listening to history books.
So perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's your thing.
Yeah.
So you can become an expert on history because it's what you're into.
Yeah.
I can tell you a lot about Tolkien and Robert Jordan and Le Morte Arthur. Like I could tell you a whole lot about fantasy books.
I did read all the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings series when I was young, though. I did. Because that was like...
Should read it again.
Yeah. Oh, really?
No, because you're going to get something very different out of it now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not talking about the Amazon
page
show.
to page.
by the way.
Those were like, holy cow. What do you mean?
I'm not talking about the Amazon show, the thing they're doing.
No.
I'm
What's
talking
it called?
about the book.
The Ring of Fire? What's
The
that?
Rings of Power.
Rings of Tell me what you really think.
I don't want to get too deep into that. I'm not a professional movie critic yet. But
Real quick.
read the book.
All right. What are we doing on time? So
I
I
got
have
plenty of
a
time.
hard stop. I have a hard stop because I got to have lunch with the LO at 12:15, but right down the street.
Gotcha.
So we'll wrap it up in 10 minutes.
Okay.
I see the
We might have to talk more about
we can
fantasy
do-
books the next time.
But by the way, we can continue to do this series. It's fine.
oh, for sure.
I can see the air conditioning kicked in for you, by the way.
oh, yeah, it is cooler
feeling a
now.
lot better, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was outside. Our weather right now, for those watching, is it's like Florida.
This is the worst heat wave of the year so far.
And it's great if you're used to Florida weather.
But it's also the humidity factor.
Oh,
yeah.
it's just terrible. And I was outside for about an hour with a client before I came here.
Yeah.
And just cooking. Just cooking. So
I work
didn't
out in my
even
garage yesterday, and what's normally an hour workout, I was like at
20 minutes?
At 30 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. No, it's too much. It's too much.
But real quick, all right, not to bring up politics because it's not a political thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like we have the election coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have interest rates. The Fed's actually going to drop interest rates for the first time in 2.5 years. September 18th.
I wonder why they're dropping them now.
I know. These conspiracy theories, here we come.
No, I'm asking you. You're the expert on that, not
It's
me.
kind of too late, though. Like any sort of like a quarter point cut is completely meaningless to.
Why are they doing it now?
Yeah. You know, I don't know. Like the Fed claims to have
Appearances,
independence, but yeah, there's probably something to that.
See, okay, so here's where I'm going to play dumb, and I'm just going to say I'm the dumb realtor here. But to me, from my perception, I'm just operating off what I see, what I'm told by other people, what I talk to people all day long, and my perception is that inflation isn't gone yet.
Okay.
And so I remember there was
inflation
some chatter
doesn't
a
go
while
away.
ago.
It's just, will it stop
Well-
going up at the rate it was going up in the last 2 years? I mean, basically the last 4 years, it's gone up, what, for 30-40%?
But is it fair? Okay, well,
Cumulative.
let's dig into this a little bit. Right, that's the thing. So, well, it's not 9% anymore. Now it's only 5%.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
But people think prices are going down. They're not. They're just not going up as
That's
fast
the
anymore.
thing. If we go back, let's say 3 years, and it was up 8%, and then from there it went up
10%,
9%.
Yep.
Well, cumulatively, that's not
18.
Yeah, exactly. That's not
Yeah.
even 17.
Yeah.
Now we're at 18, and then it went up another 5%. Now again, we're like 24% almost. So the idea that it's coming down, I'm like, well, no, nothing's actually come down. The rate of inflation is just shrinking,
Yes.
but still going up.
People don't understand that, though.
Well, I know, but so why are we lowering rates?
Well, I think the idea is there's lag effects to this last 2.5 year period where interest rates have remained elevated. And if they don't get ahead of it, you have to anticipate, right? Well, unemployment, first of all, went from 3.4% to 4.3%. Job creation, obviously the job market's starting to weaken, right? We just had a stinker of a report today, and downward revisions for the last 2 months of 85,000 jobs.
They're always downward revisions,
right.
though.
In fact, the annual revision that just took place like a couple weeks ago, did you hear about that?
Yep.
818,000 jobs just vanished, didn't happen.
Yep.
Right. So it's obvious that, in my opinion.
Well, and let's talk about the part-time jobs. Because they're counting those.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a little bit of a crazy thing to count in that number.
And they're double counting them too.
There's that.
Yeah.
We are getting into the weeds probably for a lot of people here, but because I think these numbers aren't great. The reason I'm kind of making fun of the whole rate drop thing is because I'm not seeing any real rhyme or reason to it. I'm not seeing how it really fixes any potential problem, except you've got piles of sellers where we live.
Yeah.
Okay. You have piles, and everywhere really, but I'm just focusing on here for right now, that have 3% interest rates on their home or less.
Can't sell.
And they've wanted to move.
Yeah.
I've talked to 25 of them. They want to move.
Yeah.
But they can't sell because they're locked in, because where are they going to go? They're going to move to Idaho or Utah. And
things are just too expensive for elevated interest rates.
Right.
Not just real estate and sellers wanting to move, but the federal government.
So either bring them down to a rate that is at least commensurate with where they're at now, so they can sell and go to the next place, or don't pretend you're lowering it 0.25% because that's going to be
something
the magic bullet.
Right, it's not.
It's just odd to me. I don't understand it. But again, this is not my wheelhouse. It's yours.
Yeah, I think ultimately they're trying to avoid breaking something, because if they're breaking something, which I think at some point in the next 6 to 12 months could happen, it's back to 0% interest rates and, craziness. So
I mean, I've heard the argument.
Boom bust cycles.
I've heard the argument that it's already broken. Mm-hmm. So
it's a bifurcated economy, though. Like for some people, it's broken.
Right.
I would say half of the country is suffering.
I would say more than half.
More than half. Let me restate that.
Yeah.
I'd say 80% of the country is suffering.
I think that's
right.
fair.
The top 20%, especially the top 10%, right?
Because
if you have $10 million in the bank and you just get to plunk it at
5% interest.
5% interest. For the people who are living off of credit and paycheck to paycheck, they're really dying.
They're getting annihilated for sure. And I think, to your point, that upper 10% they're doing so well that it's almost masking to some extent.
Yeah, because they're spending all the money, they're booking all the first class trips, they're going to Disneyland, they're buying
boats,
fancy
they're buying second
boats,
homes, they're traveling.
Second homes,
So their spending is almost keeping the economy seeming like
This is the part
it's
that
fine.
gets me angry, that the way things are set up is like 90% suffer so that 10% can have a good life. Like, this shouldn't be the way things work. What happened to the middle class, man? What happened to the middle class?
We're in full agreement on that. The middle class has always been, of any very high-functioning society, the most important class.
Yeah.
And I apologize to any of the upper-class people that hear that. I don't mean to offend you, but you have to have a strong middle class.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. And the best thing to do is to have the biggest middle class you can.
Yes.
You're always going to unfortunately have some poor. That is very unfortunate, but there's always going to be there, and there's always going to be an upper class. But if you make the middle class really big and really strong, the economy is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And right now, it's in my lifetime. I mean, I was alive when Carter was president and when Reagan came in, but I don't remember it very well because I was very young. But there may have been a comparison there. But in my lifetime, this is the time that I remember seeing the worst middle class situation going on. And because a lot of those are my clients, and I talk to them, they're having a hard time.
Yeah.
They're having a very hard time.
Yeah.
And the one thing that they...
I'll say one thing, quick interruption. The stock market is not the economy.
No.
Right?
No, but the one thing a lot of my middle class clients have is a lot of equity in their house.
Yeah.
And they can't sell it.
So and they can't refinance to access their equity.
No, so they've got it. Maybe they bought $1 million house, and for whatever bizarre market reasons, it's up to $2 million. Yeah. They can't get that money.
It's net worth on paper. It's meaningless.
It doesn't mean anything because even if they moved to Utah, Idaho, any places we talk about, Tennessee, whatever, no matter where they went, the rates are still. It's going to cause their payment to be twice as much as their payment is right now. So they're just going to chew through that money that they just made a profit on.
Yeah.
It's a catch-22.
Yeah,
they're all just stuck.
The real estate market is stuck.
Oh
right?
yeah,
it's stuck, and I don't even.
I would
need,
go so far as saying unhealthy.
Yeah, and no one needed, by the way, COVID low rates. No one needed a 2.5% 30-year fixed. Just give us normal. right?
I like the 3%, me personally.
Yeah.
But,
I'm just saying, if we can't have that, give us normal. Like
4?
Yeah.
That's not 4? Yeah, I think everybody could. I think everybody
You know
would
what
be
I
fine
mean?
with that.
More
sure.
or less 4%. It's not ZERP. It's not going to create inflation, I don't think. But it's going to create a somewhat balanced and healthy market where sellers are motivated to sell and buyers are motivated to buy. Right?
The next time we talk, I'd like to start it with a whole different topic that branches off that. Because this is a question that I hear get asked a lot. What if the Fed was not involved in this and banks just set their rates based on, I'm loaning plenty of money, I'm going to raise the rate. Okay, I'm not loaning any money anymore, I'm going to bring it down. What if banks had control over that and not a government entity?
Yeah, well, they're talking about if a certain administration wins, they're talking about taking away the conservatorship of Fannie Freddie and privatizing it, and also encouraging banks and the private sector to do more and most of the lending.
Would that be positive for rates or negative for rates?
I don't know. It's hard to say because after 2008,
You're the expert, though. Come on, man.
I would say after 2008, the private sector proved that they can't behave. Right.
Oh, you're talking about the crash?
Yeah. To a certain extent, Fannie, Freddie being under conservatorship and having a government guarantee behind most of the paper written for mortgages these days instills confidence, and instills stability, and that's probably a good thing.
The backing part, yes.
Yeah.
But is government the most competent entity?
No. Yeah, I would like to see more competition, for sure.
I'm wondering if there's a middle ground there where the government could back
the USPS.
paper.
Where's my UPS and FedEx, for mortgage?
Yeah,
that's what I would like.
I think that'd be interesting. It's tough. These are problems that I think smarter people than us are going to have to solve. But I think it's relevant to why we're seeing when people say what's wrong with the real estate market. So much.
Yeah.
There's a million little things.
Yeah.
Which is again why you should get a professional. But it's tough to navigate.
Thank you. Nice work today, Rob.
Pleasure.
Appreciate you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we'll do a series
again.
out of this. Last time, to close the loop on the book, name of the book and where they can buy it.
So.
And then just give us a plug on your real estate business. Right?
Sure. The book is called The Art of Buying and Selling Real Estate. You can find it on Amazon. The covers are different. This obviously was the cover that I chose to go with. Since
it looks good.
Yeah, thank you.
I like it.
I don't look so old on that picture.
That was a good shot.
It is a good book, though, for anybody that's interested in starting to get into real estate. It's not an expensive book, and it's worth reading just to give yourself an idea about it. I'm lucky. I'm pretty bit. Sorry about that. I'm pretty busy, and that's a construct of what we already talked about: experience, being in the industry for a while.
Good reputation.
Yeah, you earn those things over time, and they're not just time. Like I kind of started the conversation with, a lot of deals.
Yeah,
and eventually, people say, "Hey, had a good experience with this person. Give them a call."
How did they find you?
Best way to find me is
phone number.
Yeah,
email.
You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Phone number 714-330-9558. If I don't pick up, I will get back to you very quickly. Text is always fine. I've probably gotten 100 texts while we're sitting here. That's the easiest way. But I'm happy to help people. I work outside of Orange County. I do a lot up in Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead, the mountain towns.
That's right. Yep.
Down to San Diego, up to LA, from LA. So I do a lot there.
Even Utah, even Idaho. Yeah.
Utah and Idaho. Yep, licensed in both. I actually literally closed a deal in Utah today.
Right on.
In the Heber Valley. Yeah,
Cool.
closed this morning.
Good stuff.
So I'm around.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Thanks for
Jay.
listening, guys.
Thank you.